If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
The views heard on this radio show do not necessarily reflect the views of WKNH, the leadership of its executive board, Keene State College's Student Affairs Division, nor the Board of Trustees of the University System of New Hampshire. Yeah, that's right, I'm hardcore. The views heard this morning are mine, and my name is Vincent Moore, your host, and this is WKNH 91.3, the student-run radio from the campus of Keene State College. On your radio in the Monadnock region and on your device at WKNH.org. So now, it's been a long time coming for reasons I'd rather not have to rehash and get into, but we have our second mayoral candidate here today in studio. We have, and I kid you not, Mr. Nobody here in studio. Hello, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on. And so, I guess, has your, for the viewers who are dying to know, has your name always been Nobody?
No. My name used to be Rich Paul, and I changed it to Nobody to run for office because nobody knows how to live your life better than you do, and nobody deserves that kind of power.
And how long have you been living in the Monadnock region?
I've been here about a decade. The first time I guess I was noticeably or publicly here was when I started the 420 rally in Keene in 2009.
And I was about to ask, so what has your contribution been to the community now since you've arrived?
Well, I mean, apart from selling some weed, I ran the 420 rally that for about 3 years was we were out on the town common in Keene smoking herb in protest of the insane war on drugs. I actually ran for mayor one time before, but they kicked me off the ballot because I was in jail at the time. Let's see, what else have I done here? I work at I'm on the radio on a regular basis. I'm on Free Talk Live as a radio host. I am a clergyman. I am the Pope of the Church of the Invisible Hand, which is here in Keene, and we're a local psychedelic church. And I don't know, I give aid and comfort to those who I feel like giving aid and comfort to.
Okay, and so could you please just summarize your philosophy regarding governance?
They shouldn't do that. Nobody should do that stuff. Just about everything that the government does, nobody should do it. And that's why nobody's running for office.
Okay, and that, and if you don't mind just elaborating into that, because many people listening, I imagine, would disagree. They would say, oh, we need roads, we need police, we need the military. And what would your response to be?
Well, we do need roads. Roads are very important things. And because we need roads, people will build roads, regardless of whether there's a government to make them do it. The only time you need tax money is to make people pay for things they don't want or need. If people actually want and need the things they're paying for, they'll pay for them voluntarily. Now, the other two things you mentioned were police and military. Well, this is radio, so F the police, but, we do need security. There are bad people out there who want to take our property and do us harm, and I think we should stop giving those people badges. And instead of depending on criminals to defend us from criminals, we should defend ourselves. Thomas Paine wrote that the great object is that every man be armed. And if everybody has a gun, then you don't have to worry about the police and you don't have to worry about the military. Nobody's going to invade your home or your country.
So why do you feel most qualified to be the mayor of Keene? Why ought people to vote for you?
Well, I think people should vote for me because I recognize that the government in general is a net bad. Even when they're doing things that sound good on paper, most of what they do is harmful. And as a result of that, nobody should do those things.
And why should KSC students vote for you?
KSC students should vote for me because most of the things that y'all get arrested for, most of the things y'all get hassled for, most of the things y'all get beat up for aren't crimes. You're not harming somebody. Drinking is not a crime. Smoking weed is not a crime. At worst, these are vices. And for the police and the school to ruin your life over a vice is pointless. They tell you, oh, weed will ruin your life. That's a lie. The truth is, the government will ruin your life if they catch you with weed. That's not the same thing.
And one major issue is the town retaining graduates and retaining just working professional people. So how would you, if elected to mayor, how would you plan to incentivize graduates to stay, set up roots, and employment in Keene?
Make taxes voluntary because, you know, if you can get a head start here without paying taxes, that what better reason is there to stay?
And how would you get, if elected now as your platform, how would you get the city council to get on board with that, just making taxes voluntary? I'm sure many will have reservations regarding that.
I don't think any of them will have any question in their mind that it's a bad idea. But I mean, unless some of my I don't know if I want to say, because it's a nonpartisan race, but I also do have allies running for the city council. I've got Ian Freeman is running. There's a whole collection of people running for office who would support this kind of idea.
Okay, and what are your views on the Pumpkin Fest as it is now?
You know, I don't know how Pumpkin Fest is now. The last time I was at Pumpkin Fest was 2010, and they arrested me. So I didn't go back.
Well, I mean, in the sense that there's still controversy regarding Pumpkin Fest. Some in the community don't want it to happen because they view that what happened in 2014 is going to be inevitable. And some...
What exactly happened in 2014?
Well, so
was that the year of the pumpkin smashing riot or something?
Yeah, there was some students made some very poor choices, and the stormtroopers were called in, and yeah, there's a lot of great video that came from it. But I mean, it's so controversial today. There's like mini Pumpkin Fest or Pumpkin Fest Light, but you know, a lot of people are afraid of it because maybe I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there is concerns about having another one, and if it becomes as big as it once was, that then their property rights are endangered because there might be another riot. And livelihood also because of the PR hit that the college took. So there's many concerns regarding Pumpkin Fest continuing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of the college, I know enrollment has been falling, but you know, it's not having more parties that makes your college enrollment fall. It's having fewer parties. So I'm guessing it was the crackdown that caused that. In terms of Pumpkin Fest itself, it's a strange phenomenon. I remember the first year that I saw it, you know, I'm walking around downtown and there's these huge altars built to worship the pumpkin. And I'm like, man, these crazy mofos in Keene, New Hampshire sure do love their pumpkins. And then I go back out like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was a little drunk and I just went out and I'm wandering around looking at the aftermath. And there's smashed pumpkins all over downtown Keene. I'm thinking, wow, these crazy mofos in Keene, New Hampshire sure do hate their pumpkins. So, you know, I don't know what to make of it, but people seem to have a good time with it. If property is damaged, then, you know, you react to the damage of the property as it happens, but you can't prevent people from coming into the town or socializing or having a good time because something bad might happen. You know, the reality is, no matter what you're doing in life, something bad might happen. You might be sitting in your living room and have a plane crash on your head. And what can you do about that? Nothing.
And I think I could anticipate your answer before even asking. But so a major issue. A major issue last year was the tobacco age raising ordinance. It's probably not the best way to describe it, but that got prohibition on the minds of many people in Keene. So what is your view on prohibition?
I'll start with the specific prohibition that you're talking about, which is the tobacco prohibition. Basically, it's absolutely pointless. I've been a smoker. And if you're going to start smoking, the law isn't going to stop you. And once you are smoking, the law certainly isn't going to stop you. So basically, the legislature is doing what legislatures do. In this case, it's the city council, which is still a legislature, which is producing criminals. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Every time a legislature passes a new law, they're making people into criminals who were not criminals before. So if you want to solve the crime problem, stop passing stupid laws first. If you're in a hole, stop digging. Now, the second thing I'm going to say on this, just because our Orange Master is now trying to ban flavored vapes. I believe personally that vapes are a lot safer than cigarettes. But I don't know for sure that that's true. And there are a lot of reasons. I mean, logically, it seems like it should be better. There's 4 chemicals, maybe, instead of, 5,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke? But the thing is, everything in life has uncertainty. So I should be free to make my own guess as to whether cigarettes are more harmful or vapes are more harmful. And whether or not I live and die then becomes a function of how well do I assess risk. And that's exactly how evolution is supposed to work. It's supposed to keep the people and things that make good decisions alive and make the ones that make bad decisions dead. So one of the easiest ways to sum up my philosophy is legalize everything and let Darwin sort it out.
Okay, and next question I have here is, since I asked Councilor Hansel, I guess it's only fair I ask you. So, what would you do about zoning to ease zoning regulations here in Keene, make it easier for people to live or start a business? What would your plans be if elected?
Well, I'd like to very carefully craft some changes, small changes to the zoning laws, but I'm really lazy, so I'm not going to do that. What I'm actually going to do is just repeal them, because there's no actual need for zoning laws, What's needed is a certain amount of protection for people who are already in an area, so that people don't move in next to the gun range and then say, oh, you got to shut down the range, we don't like the noise. Well, it was there when you moved in, so that's kind of your problem. But in general, there are, and most people don't know this, there are a lot of major cities. I believe it's Austin or Houston, Texas is one of them. And there are others that have absolutely no zoning laws, and it can make things much more efficient. If you've got a business district in one place and a residential district in someplace else, then somebody has to travel from that residential district to the business district and back every time they want to go to the store. With no zoning, you can have neighborhoods where you don't really have to travel that far because you have businesses close by to where you live. And that's a lot more convenient. But people should be able to make their own decisions when they own land as to what to do with it.
Okay, and so many, I guess, shifting gears back to campus and law enforcement. There's animosity between a certain population of the students and the local police. So I've been out, handing out Know Your Rights flyers, and I see police just constantly, there's an opioid crisis going on, but the police are just, I've noticed, at least on those nights, you'd have like 3 or 4 squad cars, including the one statey, just patrolling around all these, the party quarter. What would you so what would you do to try and I don't know if the word is in English, ameliorate, but to ameliorate. Okay, I know the words I know it's a French word.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
What would you do to ameliorate? I know the French pronunciation. Ameliorate the relations between students and police.
Well, I don't really think that police are necessary on a college. I think the college should probably handle its own security problems with its own security guards, who then are tasked with keeping people secure, including the students.
Well, the issue is it's off-campus housing. At the off-campus housing, like
at off-campus housing.
Yes.
It's really not a. I really think that the police should change their pattern to coming around when there's a problem and not coming around when there's not a problem. There's the firemen never leave the firehouse unless something is actually on fire. They don't drive around looking for careless smokers.
And what would you do to help ease the opioid crisis, or to combat the opioid crisis here in the community?
Well, the first thing is that we should do is look at harm reduction, and that means making fewer people die. Okay? And there are 2 things you can do for that right off the top. The first thing is, when a state legalizes marijuana, their opiate deaths on average drop by 25%. So if you want to think about the blood from the opiate crisis, 25% of that blood is on John Sununu's hands for refusing to legalize weed.
Do you mean Chris Sununu, the governor?
I'm sorry, Chris Sununu. I showed my age. John was his father.
Well, it's easy to make these mistakes of political dynasties, so I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, how can you tell? King Henry IV, King Henry V, King Henry VI, all the same to me. But the second thing that I wanted to say about the opiate crisis is that if property owners knew that they could that they could safely allow somebody to have a supervised injection site on their property, there are private groups that would do and pay for that just to stop the bloodletting of the opiate war, and that would be a zero-cost solution for the city. As a matter of fact, it would probably be a negative cost solution, because if people have a place where they can go and shoot up and be safe, not only from accidentally overdosing and dying because there's somebody there to Narcan you, but also be safe from police, then they're going to be going there to do their thing, and they're not going to be doing it in your backyard or wherever it is they're doing it now.
Well, what would you say then to the people who wouldn't feel comfortable with that being one of those, I guess what many would describe as a flop house being in their community? Many people wouldn't feel safe having what they would describe as junkies, all congregating to that one place.
Yeah, well, you live in Keene, so that boat has sailed. I mean, it's not Manchester, but you're already in an area that a lot of junkies flock to, so, the good thing is, if they're not being imprisoned, if they're not being impoverished, then they can probably pay for their own thing.
Okay, and Back just hopscotching all across these topics here. What's your opinion on the Bearcat, the Keene Police's Bearcat?
Thanks, but no tanks. I think the reason that these Bearcats are going out, and the reason that police forces are being militarized all across the country, is that the police know that this country is on the edge of blowing up. You know, we have been on the edge of revolution for a couple of decades now, and they distribute military equipment to the police so that the police can suppress this sort of thing. But that's not the job of the police. You know, the New Hampshire Constitution recognizes a right to revolution. And what that means is, if there's a bona fide revolution going on against the government, law enforcement should stand down, and it should be between the people and the military.
Well, how do you determine what a bona fide revolution is? Because
well, it's kind of like the Supreme Court said about porn. I may not be able to define it, but I know it when I see it.
Because if there is a revolution, I understand your point there, but if there is, an uprising or revolution, the people it's going to be against the people who signed the police's checks.
Yeah, although I would expect it to be more on a state and national level, but certainly the state government signs the state police checks. They also sign the National Guard checks. But the idea is, there's no reason, it doesn't really change things for the police if they're not being paid by the current government. They can be paid by the next government if there is a next government.
And I just have a few more questions left. So, based off of the content discussed and the subject matter, there's probably going to be very many people who don't really like what you have to say, and the ones who hate freedom of speech aren't even going to like the fact that you're on the show right now. So, what would you have to say to the people who think that you're running as a joke, or that it's ridiculous, or that you're a menace to society by doing this?
Well, the first time I voted for a libertarian candidate, it was for a guy named Harry Brown in 1996. And I wasn't quite a libertarian now. Now I've gone through libertarian and all the way to anarchist. But at the time, I was still kind of a flag-waving guy who had, faith in democracy and faith in the government. And I looked at, and I knew the government had to shrink, but I thought that Harry Brown went a little too far. And I remember saying to myself, well, he's not going to get everything he wants, even if he gets elected. So I'll just vote libertarian until I'm a little bit too free. I'm still waiting for that to happen. So I would say just vote for nobody and vote for libertarians until you think you're a little bit too free, and then we'll gladly refund your misery.
And this is now just, probably should have asked this one earlier, but what sort of relationship would you, would a nobody mayorship have with with Keene State College, right? Currently it's somewhat close with Mayor Kendall Lane, but what would it look like under you, nobody?
That would be up to them. In general, authority figures and such don't like me much, so we'll see how that works out.
Well, but in this case, you'd be the authority figure.
Oh, God, I hate that idea. I don't want to do that. Oh, well. Well, I will try to, I will try to make it for the college like I make it for everybody, where I want this to be the kind of town where if the mayor dies, they don't notice for like a year or something.
Okay, and is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, all I've got to say is please check out my campaign site at electnobody.com, and remember that nobody knows better than you do how to live your life, and nobody deserves that kind of power.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming on. And
we'd like to invite you to visit freekeene.com. Freekeene.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeene.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeene.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.